Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hardware News Recap for the week. This week is slammed for news because CES is happening, which is one of the two largest trade shows of the year for computer hardware. And we have a lot of coverage for AMD, first of all, responding to the XTX Thermal situation. It also talked about some new products. We covered most of them in a separate video, but we'll talk about the rest here. And there were really just some excellent gems from their keynote, like this one.
Your jacket's pretty rad. It's pretty rad. It's a pretty cool jacket, you have to admit. You got me.
That was a guy from Microsoft and AMD CEO Lisa Su beginning the annual executive C-suite level self-congratulatory circle as they went into AMD's announcements. And most of the keynote was that, but we got some news too. In addition to AMD's information, we'll also be talking about Corsair's swollen lithium ion battery Reddit comment, Phanteks, and a lot of new cases coming out, and some new coolers, and more. Before that, this video is brought to you by Squarespace. We use Squarespace for our own GN store and juggle complex, multi-piece orders all the time with it. Squarespace makes it fast for us to roll out new products with detailed pages full of galleries, videos, and descriptors. It's also useful for your own resume sites, for photographer or project portfolios, or for starting your new small business idea. There's never been a better time to try and start your new business than right now, and we can vouch that Squarespace makes it easy. Visit squarespace.com/gamersnexus to get 10% off your first purchase with Squarespace. Up first, AMD's keynote at CES was incredibly awkward and painful to watch. There were several instances where, because they had put the entire audience to sleep with about an hour of executives telling each other how great they are, that's not an exaggeration, they'd call for applause, and then there was none. Here's an example.
The 7800 X3D delivers on average 15% more performance than the 5800 X3D across popular games. Is that okay? And I know a few of you may be waiting for some desktop chips, perhaps, right? Yes? No? Maybe? That looks great, doesn't it? So,
as for what AMD actually announced, it was 3 new X3D CPUs and 3 non-X CPUs, and we covered all those in a dedicated news video that we'll link below. But here, we want to show you what the other hour and a half was, just in case you're thinking about watching it, so we can save you from the pain. Here's how the first executive mutual exchange of compliments went.
All right, your jacket's pretty rad. It's pretty rad. It's a pretty cool jacket, you have to admit. You got me.
Panos was not supposed to embarrass me in the first 5 seconds.
Oh, believe me, you're not the only one who was embarrassed. I was feeling it from over 1,000 miles away, and I'm really glad I wasn't in that room.
I feel like our partnerships continues to grow, and the difference that you're making in the world is pretty awesome. And it is our next step in this journey together. I'm pretty pumped about it. We can now run we can run massive models.
You've told me every top I put on that chip you're going to use.
I'm going to try.
Everybody wants to know what's next, and our teams spend a lot of time on the future. You spend a lot of time on the future.
This is the question you're not supposed to ask me.
No. This is. Let's tell the world what some of the future may bring.
I think those are for the meetings where we kind of do it in closed door sessions, not with 2,000, 3,000 people in front of us.
There might be a few more online too.
Okay, I'm gonna cut them off. I don't think we can show whatever happens next on YouTube, so we're gonna move on.
So can you talk a little bit about some of those products?
And that last quote was basically how the rest of the keynote went. You could see as AMD CEO, Dr. Lisa Su, really struggled to get the other executives back on track, where she's like, no, can you talk about some of the products? But what about the products? Can you tell me a little bit about the products? And that was the start and the end of it. So anyway, the actual news, we have some of it in this video, but the rest of it's in the dedicated one. Since it took AMD and all their partners so long, we'll do the quick recap for you. First of all, the X3D CPUs don't have a price yet. The 7950 X3D is a 16-core, 32-thread part at 5.7 gigahertz max advertised boost, running 144 megabytes of cache. We'll talk about CCD layout later in this same video as well. The 7900 X3D is 12 cores, 24 threads, and 5.6 gigahertz max advertised boost at 140 megabytes cache. The 7800 X3D is 8 core, 16 thread, 5 gigahertz max boost, so much lower here, with 104 megabytes of cache. And all three are 120 watt TDP, looking more similar to an eco mode equivalent setting. Launch is next month, and as for the other 3 parts, reviews land for those next week. The launch is the 10th, and they are the non-X parts that run cheaper than the existing XQ7000 series CPUs, but are technically lower TDP and clocks. So you might have a cheaper avenue to get higher performance, and that's the most of the real news. You can click the link below for the detail on the mobile parts that we already published. And now you know what happened in the keynote. So time saved, you're welcome. Let's move on.
You can't see, but you can feel it.
All right, so next topic, we'll keep it brief. GN has some pretty big plans for 2023. I wanted to really quickly go over it for you. We have a much more detailed written post on Patreon. We've started posting to Patreon regularly again now that we've gotten caught up with staffing and staff power to get things done. So you go to patreon.com/gamersnexus for the full story, but for the really highlights that we'd like everyone to know. So one of the things that I personally really want to work on more is some of the reporting and investigation deep dive stuff, especially the stuff that requires some travel, because I think it really adds. I mean, I love the studio as we've built this new set especially. By the way, this is all new. And we still have the old set, we'll be using both of them. But traveling just adds something to storytelling that you can't get otherwise. And for certain stories, like some of the artesian stuff we did, and like the factory tours we're doing on the more positive side, industry profiles, we're gonna be doing a lot more of that this year. We've actually already completed some, it's just not live yet. Another thing, we've been doing a lot of cross-training in the past year where people from different disciplines within GN, there's not many of us, will train on something that someone else does. So as an example, Mike, who started doing basically just cooler testing, cooler reviews, has also done some training with trying his hand at writing a little bit. He has been doing a lot of video editing assistance and sometimes taking point on video editing. And as another quick shout out, Jeremy on the team started primarily writing and now has also done some testing as well. So we're doing that, especially for newer members to the team who haven't done a little bit of everything like Patrick, Andrew, and I have, because we've been here for so long. And the really cool thing I just wanted to share is that although generally as a philosophy, I like to specialize different people on different things so that we have experts in everything, getting sort of that cross skill set really helps with people who are newer to a specific task, who don't do it every day and won't do it every day, bring a set of questions in to those who do that task every day. And that gives new perspectives. Additionally, it means that when we're doing things like writing scripts, for example, Mike is a great example of this, where when he hosted a couple of segments on Cooler Reviews, I asked him to cut down his own hosted segment in editing. And what that does is it helps to establish, hey, maybe I could tweak how I hosted a little bit for the editors because this would have been a lot easier to work with. And I won't get into the details of examples of that, but a really brief one is whenever I make a mistake when I'm hosting, I'll walk it back to start the sentence exactly the same way with the same words. So it's quick for the editors to identify like, oh, this is a retake. Stuff like that. Anyway, that's been a lot of fun. You're seeing that already show up in our quality, where the quality's gone up a lot. If you're wondering why it's gone up so fast in the last few months, that's a large part of it, is people are learning different skills within the company so we can all help each other with a better understanding of what the other people do. Another thing, higher throughput of testing. So we now have more benches set up and more processes in place to test things more efficiently. You've already seen this in place with the 4070 Ti review, and we're doing a lot more of it. And then for the rest, we are really focused on getting the videos dialed to the quality we want now. So we used to try and hit kind of arbitrary daily upload targets a couple of years ago. We've scaled it back because I realized like it's totally arbitrary and self-imposed, and we'd rather publish stuff we're really happy with. So we're just focusing on getting the stuff as good as we can for some of the storytelling we're doing. Anyway, that's the plans for GN. Just wanted to update you in a news video. End of the disappointment build talks about it a little more. That Patreon post talks about it in more detail. And then separately, this shirt is available on store.gamersnexus.net. So if you want to grab one, head over to the store and you can get the new disappointment build t-shirt. We are actually almost sold through the first 2 runs. We are only doing 3 runs of this shirt. If you want one with the back that says 2022 and it has all the worst products of the year on it to commemorate it, then head over to the store and pick it up. It helps fund our endeavors and all of our testing, writing, and even the set design like this. And as usual, we'll bring back the front-only design with a different back later in the year. But if you want the special one, head over and grab it. It's cotton and tri-blend if you like a sportier, lighter weight fit. And the front has 3 artifacting GPUs on it from, you can guess the companies. Okay, next major story. AMD responds to the 7900 XTX Thermals. So while we were working on our end of year coverage, this story broke out where there were 7900 XTXs especially that were hitting 110 degrees Celsius, which is TJ Maxx. AMD's initial reaction was that this is a safe temperature within the spec. They've done that before. That's what they said to us when we scrutinized them for the same temperatures on, I don't know if it was the 57 or the 68 or whatever XT reference cooler, but they've done that before. Whether or not it's safe for the silicon, we 100% disagree in that it is not acceptable. That's ridiculous. AMD realized that. They kind of walked it back and they treated it like the real problem that it is, and they have a statement on it. So AMD's statement to us was as follows, quote, "We are working to determine the root cause of the unexpected throttling experienced by some while using the AMD Radeon 7900 XTX graphics card made by AMD." Quick interruption there too. So specifically that phrase, made by AMD, is important. We noticed that some people thought this was like just the GPU itself. That's not the case. If you bought a partner model card, like say from Sapphire, PowerColor, whoever, you're not affected by this. If you have those kinds of temperatures, it's a different issue. This only happens on the reference design. Now, if you're new to this, the companies like Sapphire, PowerColor also sell reference designs. They're made by AMD, but they are sort of, the box is maybe listed on Newegg as Sapphire. So if you buy a reference design, it might be affected, but not the partner models. They said, based on our observations to date, we believe the issue relates to the thermal solution used in the AMD reference design and appears to be present in a limited number of cards sold. We are committed to solving this issue for impacted cards. Customers experiencing this unexpected throttling should contact AMD support, and then they give a link. Okay, so some additional commentary on this. This one felt like it was becoming a bit of the 12-volt high power thing on our side, where we were like, most of the team here was on break. I was here working on whatever content we published sort of around Christmas Day, and then Andrew and Vitaly were working with me nonstop on the disappointment build. So we were like, well, let's just see what happens, then we'll look at it. We're not going to bother testing it at this point. First of all, Der Bauer did some excellent work where he looked at it. I am happy to point you that way for the in-depth look. This time, there's nothing left for us to investigate here because this is a very simple issue. It is binary. Either it will happen to you or it will not. So if you have, this is an XT, but if you have an XTX and it's not currently hitting 110 degrees Celsius, then it will not for reasons related to this specific issue. If it does, it might be something else, maybe dust buildup or whatever. But if it is happening, then it's not going to get better. So that's what you need to know. Our cards do not have this issue. We would have talked about it in the review if they did, and that means we are unable to, there's nothing to recreate here because it doesn't happen. So the only way for us to show it in testing would be to procure one. We do have offers from people, but I mean, plugging them into a bench and then saying, look, it's 110 degrees Celsius, it doesn't do anything. And I do think Der Bauer is on the right track, where I think it's related to probably the vapor in the chamber. Maybe it wasn't vacuum sealed properly. There you go through a vacuum sealing process to contain a very small amount of liquid, which then turns into a vapor, and you have condensing and evaporating sides, just like a heat pipe, except it's a vapor chamber. So as far as we can tell, this is a manufacturing defect issue where it's not a design flaw in that if it works fine, then it's fine. It's a getting made flaw, as far as we can tell right now. So all that really means is probably hold off on buying reference models, which honestly, there's better ones anyway. And if you have a reference model, go download GPU-Z, run a game at a high resolution, make sure it's GPU bound, and see if it hits over 100 degrees Celsius on junction. And if it does, contact support, get it RMA'd, or just send it back to the retailer that sold it to you if you're within 30 days. That'd be far easier for you. So those are your options. Anyway, we're glad AMD is taking it seriously now. They said that their customer support has been trained to just accept returns related to this and stop fighting people on it and saying it's normal. So the big issue has been resolved. And as for buying one, just wait until it's clear that they've all been fixed. So, and the last thing related to this XTX thermal thing, just a quick reminder, this is a good time to remind everyone, we can't possibly keep up with everything. We're doing a lot already behind the scenes, and I thought about trying to squeeze in the testing for it, like orientation testing, all this stuff. I'm glad I didn't, because it's clear we would have needed a defective card. Ours is not. And just sometimes we're going to skip stories, and we'll update you in news videos like this one. That doesn't mean we think the story is less important or anything like that. It's just a matter of, I mean, honestly, I have to scale back my ambitions a little bit sometimes, because otherwise it goes beyond. It's completely unhealthy otherwise, so that's all there is to it. Okay, next story. AMD chiplet configuration. So we already talked about AMD's X3D announcements from CES. They have the 78 X3D, 7900 X3D, 7950 X3D. Check our separate video. We'll link it below if you want to learn about the specs in detail. But we now have a little more information. Gordon Ma-Un, our favorite co-host from PC World, AMD's better.
Well, that's true. That's what the internet says. I would disagree, because as the person
with the internet,
I would disagree with the internet, unfortunately, because
do you still want a career? He had an interview with AMD's Scott Stankard where they discussed the new X3Ds in more detail. And the most important thing here is that the 7900 X3D and the 7950 X3D specifically are going to have an asymmetric CCD layout. So this is pretty interesting. Only one of the two CCDs on each of these CPUs is going to end up equipped with 3D V-Cache on top. This is information we didn't learn until basically we published the video, AMD started doing the interviews. So this explains a few things, but it also raises a few new questions. First off, the 7800 X3D's boost clock being lower than the other two X3Ds now makes sense. We already knew that AMD had to limit the frequency on the previous gen 58 X3D due to the V-Cache, the thermal sensitivity, and that's still the case for the new X3Ds. The reason the 7900 X3D and the 7950 X3D have max boosts the same as the existing 7900X and 7950X is because while the CCD with the extra cache is clock limited, the CCD without extra cache is not limited. Now, in the interview, AMD basically said that its engineers tested various configurations in the lab, and they came to the conclusion that the mixed CCD layout they think is the best overall compromise of performance and of keeping the costs relatively controlled for consumers. So if both CCDs had the V-Cache, they're saying it would raise the cost, which makes sense. And also applications that benefit more from the extra cache will be able to run on the slower but stacked CCD, while ones that benefit from more raw clock speed can theoretically run on the other one. This gets challenging though, because unless you are going to schedule your applications manually, there's no built-in hardware scheduler with Ryzen to do this, to assign it to the cache stacked or to the frequency focused CCD. So that means we're relying on Windows, on Microsoft, which is why Microsoft, I guess, got up on stage and repeatedly complimented Lisa Su's jacket and then sort of said a bunch of nothing for about 6 minutes. But anyway, hopefully in between saying nothing, he's helping manage the team that's working on scheduling for threads, because they're going to need it. So probably this will only be for Windows 11. It's similar to what Intel did when it introduced its own asymmetric design with Alder Lake or the 12th gen CPUs. We'll hold our judgment until we can review the new X3Ds, because we'd speculate that scheduling for asymmetry won't be easy, but maybe they've already gotten it figured out. On the 12th and 13th gen, one type of core is clearly faster than the other for all tasks, and that seems like a simpler decision than having awareness of which applications benefit more from cache or frequency. And we always love working with Gordon, so if you want to learn more about this, check out his piece from PC World over on PCWorld.com or on their YouTube channel, which is just PC World on YouTube. All right, Corsair, swollen battery story. This is going to be pretty quick. If you were emailed us last week notifying us that on Reddit there was a post where a customer complained about a swollen lithium-ion battery. They basically look like a pillow when it happens, in a Reddit post in a Corsair headset. So the headset is wireless, it has its own battery, and it was damaged. The concern that the email pertained to was a Corsair representative, an official from Corsair, responding to that thread and saying that this is normal and by design, which is absolutely not the case. We've contacted Corsair. We have a statement from them. They've retracted the original statement, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the most important part here is that this is a dangerous claim. It is not normal, and you need to get rid of devices that have swollen batteries, lithium-ion, immediately and in a safe way. So lithium ion swelling is a step before a potential catastrophic failure. It is not guaranteed. Not every swollen lithium ion battery will catch on fire or explode. Typically, the catalyst for that is some kind of damage. It might be a puncture. It might be like a significant drop or fall where something within the battery catalyzes a failure that is catastrophic to fire normally, or a small explosion. So this is extremely dangerous. It's serious. Disregard everything that Corsair representative said. And if your device looks like that, you need to get rid of it. Take evidence of it first, like photos. Email whoever the manufacturer is, not just Corsair that makes these. Tell them it's damaged. And honestly, like, I would just get it out of my possession. They might ask for it back. Just take photos and hopefully tell them, hey, it was unsafe, I got rid of it. Anyway, in the Reddit post, the representative said this, quote, "Hey there, these batteries are designed to swell as the gas is released. The headset is designed with the space needed so as not to puncture the battery." Now, most likely this is a representative who assumed they knew something or learned something at some point which is inaccurate, and they posted this inaccurate post. I don't think it's malicious for any reason, but it's still dangerous misinformation. Corsair, we emailed them immediately. After our email, that Reddit comment was deleted. It was on their official subreddit as support. And then Corsair emailed us this comment. They said, quote, "I can clarify that headset batteries are not designed to swell, although the product has elements that mean if they do swell, they won't be punctured. And any customers noticing swollen lithium-ion batteries should contact our support team to arrange an RMA and replacement." Our first action here was to arrange an RMA and look after this customer, and I believe a replacement has since been arranged. They continued, they said, "We'll be reminding all of our tech and customer support teams that, as public representatives of the company, their statements need to be factually accurate and held to a high standard." So Corsair is experiencing some growing pains as it expands to be one of the largest companies in the industry at this point. They have had a couple of missteps lately. It seems like they are aware of the encumbering size that the company now is, and they're taking steps to address it. But anyway, we just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of the dangers of that in case you saw the post and you saw the Corsair badge and you went, oh, that's legitimate information. So that's it for that one. Hyte, Y40 up next. So Hyte's new case, the Y4D, or as it's now known, the Y40, that we saw in Taipei a couple weeks ago. We have a video on it covering it in depth if you want to learn about it. But it's a new case. It follows up the Y60, which is back there, the red one. It cuts off that corner, though. They've gone to just a straight edge. So it's just a 90 degree at the corner. Loses a lot of the character, sadly, but they've sculpted in a lot of angles and shapes and things to try and make the case interesting. But the most interesting part now, since we already reported on this case, is the price. It's $150. That's going to be the MSRP for the case. And it comes with two fans, one 120mm rear, one 120mm bottom, and then otherwise, the most interesting part after that is technically it supports a 120mm thick radiator on the side. That's like, it's as in it's 120 this way, and then it's 120 this way. So very large radiator if you, for some reason, wanted to do that. But otherwise, it's built to go with their thick Q60 in the future. I think we have some footage of it from Taipei, which is going to be a very fat radiator plus fan combo at something around 80, 82 millimeters total. So next one, Phanteks, inspired by Lian Li. Phanteks this year launched a new SFX power supply, new case that's pretty interesting, new fans, and a new AIO. Starting off with one of the cases, the NV7 is a large tower that looks to take heavy inspiration from Lian Li's O11D XL and manages to make a full-size ATX motherboard look small. The NV7, I wonder what NV stands for. NV. Don't know. Anyway, the NV7 is a dual chamber setup. The power supply is in the rear of the chamber and it sits above the motherboard tray. So it ends up looking more like a sort of a motherboard alcove. There's room for radiators and fans everywhere. 3 120s can go on the top, at least 3 on the bottom on the angled tray, 4 on the side, and 2 fans in the back. There's also a set of cable management fingers on the rear I/O side of the case to allow for a cleaner route down the back. And the NV7 will be in black or white. It's supposed to come out in February for $220 US. We'll probably review it. We're a little bit behind on cases right now, but we're trying to work through getting caught up on them. So next one, Phanteks also announced a new Glacier series product. It's the R260 pump res combo. It's got some LEDs in it. and it's white or black also. This thing is a D5 pump included solution. It can mount to a dual 120mm fan location, so the one you saw in the NV7. The R260 will be available in March for $240 for the black version or $250 for white. And the NV7 itself isn't the only bit of Lian Li inspiration in the Phanteks booth. The NV7 was outfitted with new D30 120mm fans. These are 30 millimeters thick, like the T30s, but they feature the ability to snap together with pin-to-pad contacts for cableless daisy chaining. And we're probably showing you some footage right now of the Lian Li solution that does that from when we visited them recently. They call it the Unifan. This sends the power and the signaling to run the fans and built-in ARGB lighting from fan to fan, only requiring one cable at the end. And the D30 120 fans will be available in March. They say they're going to be $30 for one, or if you want enough to actually use the feature that's interesting, you can get a pack of 3 for $85. And back to cases, Phanteks also showed off the G300A. This is new. It's a mid-tower mesh front case for the budget segment. The main selling point here is that Phanteks designed it specifically for use with a front-mounted 360mm CLC and large 4090 sized graphics card at the same time. The G300A will be available in March for $60, which is a pretty compelling price point. That puts them in direct competition with Montech, which has a lot of new cases with new tooling coming out in around March to May of this year. Most of them land in April, May area. So that'd be like the new, the X3 follow-up. I think they call it X4, and a couple of other cases they had. Montech's targeting $60 to $70. This is great news that Phanteks and Montech are both making $60 cases. That segment was kind of dead for a long time other than old stuff that's been around a while. And it's promising because it will align with hopefully cheaper silicon coming out as well from Intel and AMD, especially on the CPU side. So it looks like we're going to get some of that budget building segment back, at least cases and CPUs, and then we'll see where GPUs go this year. Not much faith in NVIDIA, but maybe Intel will bring us something. All right, Phanteks also has a couple of coolers. We'll go through these quickly. They have air and liquid coolers. There's the Polar S line available in 4 or 5 heat pipe configurations and a single tower. And then they also have a 6 heat pipe layout with a dual tower configuration. The company says that it's targeting a lower price for these. And then on the liquid cooling side, they have a Glacier 1 line of coolers, 240 and 360 with T30 fans. And then for the rest, it's supposed to be priced at $190 for the 240 and $260 for the 360 mil. That is very high for a liquid cooler. Finally, they had a Revolt SFX 850 watt power supply. It's got 12 volt high power, it's platinum, and it's $200 in February as well. So next one. AMD is finally bringing its exascale APU concept from 2017 to life at the very end of AMD's CES keynote. After all of the congratulatory executive circling, they announced the MI300. This is a combination of 9 5nm chips on top of 4 6nm chips, surrounded by HBM3, all on one massive stacked package. It's incredibly complex, and it adds up to 146 billion transistors. Specs include 24 Zen 4 CPU cores, a CDNA 3 compute chip of currently unknown CU count, and 128 gigabytes of HBM3 on an 8192-bit memory bus. That can all be accessed by the CPU or the GPU in a unified way for complicated supercomputing applications. AMD is pushing this for training AI models, and it says there's an 8 times increase in performance and 5 times in efficiency over the MI250X. Currently, the MI300 is deployed in a supercomputer at Oak Ridge National Labs for testing, and they're sampling it to industry partners soon. Not a consumer part, but it's kind of cool. It's like really impressive hardware, so at least fun to learn about. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching, as always. First of all, subscribe because we have reviews coming up for the 7000 series AMD CPUs that were just announced, the new ones. And then additionally, you can go to store.gamersnexus.net to grab one of our Disappointment Build t-shirts in limited quantities, but a really fun design and great way to recap the last year. Plus, it helps fund our efforts for the next few months as we plan out our travel, our reviews, and our testing. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time.